Hello from
And now
Florida.
we are live. So there we go.
We are live? Is that what you said?
We are live. We'll get started in just a moment.
Right. Oh, in a moment.
Yeah, we want to wait and let some people start watching before we start talking. I think that's the polite thing to do. You know, like whenever I'm like watching a live stream on YouTube, I'm like, well, I need like a little bit of time after I get the notification before I can like start watching. So why are you already like talking to me like I'm already supposed to be there?
Word.
The mystic ways of live stream.
Well, yes, we are about to start off the Tex-Trek podcast, talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 1, the season premiere, and this will kick off the first part of our hashtag TQIF Friday night lineup.
What does that stand for, Fathery?
It stands for Thank You, It's Friday, which I thought would be like apparent, but people often ask what does it stand for, so maybe not.
You know, it's the first podcast of the new season. I thought I'd play exposition and make you say it. I thought I'd play the role of Worf, the mini brain in the Q equation.
Micro brain, isn't it?
Micro brain, yes.
Well, a real micro brain. You proved yourself to be right there.
What is Q? What is the lead up to that thing where he's like, what do I have to do to prove myself to you? And he's like, die.
Yeah.
What do I have to do to? What do I have to do to prove to you people that I'm mortal? And that's actually like right response, I guess. You know.
Yeah.
It is as literal a spin on it as you can get.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. We have a few people in the audience already.
Boat Trek has said, "I am here. You may begin." So that's all that matters.
Hit it, punch it.
All right. Well, let us delay no more. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
This is Brian.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 119th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. And tonight we will begin talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 3 with this premiere episode, The Hope Is You Part 1. Very interesting because there is not That Hope Is You Part 2 anywhere in the season. They have all the episode titles released. Oh. There is no Part 2 to this Part 1.
Wow. So the next episode is not called that?
No. Is it
it's not possible it's like the... What's that?
I have some theories on why that might be, but...
You think it's going to be the final episode, a secret episode, a short trek? We're going to have to travel back in time to see.
I think it's episode 7 of this season. If you look at the title of it and think about it, it might explain what they're doing here.
Oh.
But
I don't want to spoil myself though.
Well, the episode titles aren't that spoilery. I saw them.
What if it's called The Death of Burnham?
What
if it's called, what's that one, Qui-Gon's Tragic Fate or whatever?
Well, I mean, after they did the lamb doesn't cry for the butcher's knife, I got to stay away from these titles. They spoil everything.
No, this episode was written by Michelle Paradise and Jenny Lumet and Alex Kurtzman and directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi. And before we start talking about it, I'm just going to give a recap of it by reading to you the synopsis for the episode, and then I'll kind of expand on it with spoilers. But the official synopsis reads, Burnham navigates a strange new galaxy 930 years in her future, looking for the rest of the Discovery crew. And that doesn't really tell us much, but my spoiler explanation, Michael Burnham crashes alone onto a world in a future without Starfleet or the Federation. She befriends Book, who is our new character we've been hearing about for months. He's a bit of the Han Solo scoundrel with a heart of gold archetype. And together, the two of them escape some Orion and Endorian jerks. They rescue an animal. They start a mission to find not just the Discovery, but to rebuild Starfleet and the Federation from the remaining fragments that exist in this future universe.
No pressure.
So we're each just going to pass the mic around and give our opening statements, kind of share our broad opinion and feelings and reaction to this episode. Then after that, we'll just delve into every little bit of it in great detail. I'll go ahead and go first. But I've made it clear for a long time that I'm not a big fan of the idea of jumping the Discovery into this far-flung future. That was never really something I was particularly happy about. But I don't like the idea of like a post-apocalyptic Star Trek, or at least I don't like it on paper. And I'm still, looking forward to seeing more of these characters. I always wanted to see more, Tilly and Stamets and Burnham and Saru. And I was always very optimistic about Michelle Paradise taking over the writer's room and her being a showrunner who actually got to maintain control of the show for an entire season, a first for Discovery. So I've always been excited about seeing how that plays into things. And, going into this episode, knowing it's not really what I want it to do, I knew I could still enjoy it if what it was doing was good. And I, walked away from it having a pretty good time. I thought this was really fun. I liked that they were able to break the mold so much. I liked that they were able to get off the ship, and which I always find kind of cold and sterile. And instead they were able to, visit some more colorful and lively locations. I liked the chemistry between Burnham and Book, and I thought it was a bold move to let the two of them carry the episode by themselves, but I thought that part of it worked. And, like I said, it's not exactly what I want from a Star Trek show, but then again, kind of the stuff they've done with Discovery all along, it's most of the time kind of something that it's not exactly what I want, but that doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy it. It's just not what I would be doing. So I actually, I was cautiously optimistic going into this episode, and I'm cautiously optimistic coming out of it. I had an overall positive experience, though. My expectations on this were not particularly high, just because I was never that on board with the premise. But I enjoyed what we saw, and what my biggest takeaway is that it didn't have that Discovery awkwardness where the show kind of meanders around and it feels like uncertain about what it wants to do. This is the most confident I've ever seen Discovery. This is the show saying, okay, I know what I'm doing, and you might think I'm weird, but you know what? This is me. I like Book when he's like, I got to be myself. I'd rather be myself than anything else. And he's just like, I'm going to be proud of who I am, and I'm going to do my thing right here. So here I go, baby. And I appreciate the show finding its confidence, especially coming out off of Lower Decks. That first season I really enjoyed. I thought that was like a very confident first season. That show really knew what it wanted to do, and that ending of that show, I'm still like riding high from that. And I'm glad to see that Discovery didn't just come out on stage and be like, oh, that was a tough act to follow. I don't really know what I'm doing. Like Discovery is like, I know what I want to do, and here I go. So I'm very happy to give it a chance and watch it play out throughout the rest of the season. Brian, what about you?
I guess it was soul-suckingly dark. It was super fun. It was bold and confident. It was pretty fucking perfect.
That's some bold words, sir. Brian, let me just quick ask you as a follow up to your short statement. I've got some more questions for you, sir.
Okay.
No. Just in the scheme of Star Trek premiere episodes, does it like kind of hit closer to your upper echelon?
Yeah, probably. This is definitely one of the better episodes of Star Trek I've seen, at least as far. I mean, if they pay off what they've set up. I mean, obviously, since it's not a complete story, you kind of end up downgrading these things if the payoff isn't worthy of the setup. But yeah, I thought it hit the ground running. I like that it's brighter and
it
more
literally
colorful.
hit the ground, by the way.
Yeah.
Running.
And it's brighter, it's more colorful, it's not afraid to just trot out some really dark shit. It's not afraid to boldly go where no Star Trek series has gone before, and it's not afraid to have some fun with itself, and to, I mean, let Michael be funny, which is not something we've seen a lot of. I think Fathery pointed that out at some point, but
no, Sonequa Martin Green has such a wide range as an actress, and she's such a fun and energetic person. I am so thrilled to finally see the show capitalize on that.
They finally let her do drugs. At last, Star Trek has finally broached that barrier.
I think after all
that barrier.
They did that in season 1 when Tilly got high with the Orion.
Arguably, they did that back on TOS at times.
Ron Howard, Clint Howard, when she got high with Clint Howard Orion.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to?
Michael deserves a chance to get a little buzz. She's been through hell. She needed that ruthless interrogation. So,
well, I'll have more questions for you later, Brian. Don't go anywhere. We need you to stay inside the city limits. So, as people may or may not know, I am the owner of a Maine Coon, and so my main judgment was this episode was does it feature a large Maine Coon, and it does. So it immediately fulfilled that obligation. So good on it for that. Beyond that, I had a sort of mixed reaction. I watched it twice. The first time I was kind of tired when I watched it, and I had I'm going to say viscerally bad reaction to it. And then I liked it a good bit more when on rewatch, but I still. It feels to me like, and Discovery has always had elements of this, and I guess that maybe I've never quite made my peace with how I think influenced it is by the Kelvin movies. I know that, there are those people who are like, well, I don't consider it canon. It's like it's part of the Kelvin canon, or whatever. That's the various conspiracy theories and ridiculousness. But it does tonally feel like that. So just to some degree, I get a sense of where they're coming from on it. But that said, that, and when I say Kelvin, I mean like it is very action packed. The characters are all kind of quirky in this episode, from the quirky Orion and Andorian interrogators to kind of a lot of repartee that's almost like Lethal Weapon kind of repartee between Book and Sonequa Martin Green, Burnham, and a lot of quirky situations too, like her getting high on drugs for their truth serum, and big action sequences. They had a lot of that Star Trek Kelvin-verse running around sort of stuff. That said, there was a lot I did like in the episode, and Book is, I think, sort of front and center in that. I liked him notably more on second viewing. I feel like the plot points are a little haphazard. That the burn is kind of a Kelvinish kind of plot, sort of like Red Matter. Yeah, the dilithium blew up, and it doesn't feel like. I always want a little bit more of the thoughtful Trek. I think even if it's between big action, I want a little bit more thoughtful. So I am. I guess I would say I'm turning it over in my head. Perhaps by the end of this discussion, I will find myself more one way or the other. But I did. I think on second viewing, I enjoyed the ride, and I'm in the headspace to continue in episode 2.
Cool.
All right.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and.
I hope you swing over to the like it thing just so that you'll be on the podcast.
I am a lot like Bruce Banner, or David Banner as he was on the old TV show. I like to wander off nomadically at the end while sad music plays. So just know that about me. But other than that, well, I hope I end up in that place too.
I enjoy Unhappy Dave and Happy Dave equally, so I'm impartial. I don't care where he ends up.
Oh,
I'm fine with Unhappy Dave as long as he ends up here. So
as long as he agrees with you.
Well, no, as long as he agrees to show up. He can sit here and tell me I'm full of shit all he wants. I just want him to be there. So.
This first still you've got up for our audio people, of course, are not seeing this, but it's a still of the wreckage that Book was flying through and being pursued. I was like, is that the Discovery? It was like a rounded ship bridge.
Yeah, a saucer that looks like it has like sections cut out in it. Yeah, it was funny to open on that because it does kind of look like it could be the destroyed Discovery, but it is different if you take a few seconds to stare at it. And what I thought was kind of like the weird cock tease of it was that it says USS and it says NCC, but you don't see the actual ship name or the actual registry number. But yeah,
I have to admit they were restrained. I would have had it say, I would have kept the naval construction contract number obscured, but I would have had it say Enterprise. Just let people figure it out. Look, the Enterprise is dead. That's how we're opening it. Deal with it.
unless they have plans for the Enterprise in this time period.
Yeah, that's obviously you wouldn't want to do it. Though, depending on what sort of plans, there could be another letter on the alphabet.
That's true. Yeah,
there could be the USS, the 1701 JJ. They've looped all the way around the alphabet the second time.
People would love that.
Yes, nobody would complain about that.
No, well, we're just going to run through this episode from the beginning to the end and kind of comment on most of the big beats here. Not the very beginning with the bird alarm clock. We'll save that till we actually meet the character that ties into. But yeah, we open with this kind of Han Solo-y type encounter with Book the smuggler. He's hauling cargo. We don't know what it is, but we know he stole it from another thief who stole it from someone else. And it's really amazing CGI, and we get to meet this new character played by Dave Ajala, I believe is how you say his last name. And what do y'all think of this introduction for Book and his enemy, Cosmo?
How do you spell, because I didn't have captions up, how do you spell Cosmo?
Cosmo.
Yeah. Okay, just like you might think.
Yeah.
A very uninspired name.
I thought Cosmo was too Greedo, and I guess that's the Han Solo thing.
Yeah, he's 100% Greedo.
Yeah, I don't like that. Don't go referencing other franchises.
Yes, he's very much an archetype for this sort of storytelling. I didn't think Greedo per se, but because they actually did the untranslated dialogue very much in the Star Wars tradition, and it was even a little bit like like it sounded a little like whatever alien dialect they made up for Greedo back when. Yeah. That's sort of what cemented it for me. Oh yeah. See, I thought Cosmo's a Italian name, so I thought we were doing Italian gangsters.
Yeah. Well, in the chat, Starfleet Boy is watching us live, and he says Cosmo like Kramer. Yeah, that was Kramer's first name. But this opening sequence also gives us our first taste of the 32nd century technology with what, at least behind the scenes, they're calling the programmable matter, I believe is what they call it, with Book's console, where it like the controls kind of shape from a flat platform. They kind of like rise up and form. And also like all of the furniture that we see in like the future, like chairs, consoles, beds that we see later, everything, it doesn't have legs. The furniture just kind of floats there.
I don't know what you call it, but what's that?
I thought it was a neat visual.
Yeah. Yeah, do you remember? I don't know if people remember the 1990s, but in like little cheesy mall gift places like Sharper Image, where they had like way overpriced stuff. They had those things that were like almost like not nails, but like nails, where you would put your face in it and it would make a little imprint of your face that would push it out. Do y'all know the thing I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've got one of those on the shelf next to my DVDs.
They were everywhere. Yeah. And I remember when the first X-Men movie came out, Brian, I know you were a fan of the X-Men movies, that the technology that they used when they were pulling up the maps and stuff, when they were going to like Ellis Island, looked like a digital version of like that kind of thought. Those sort of little mini, like a grid rising up in 3 dimensions. And And this seems like the ultimate version of that technology, where it is moving like like they're using it like haptic kind of technology, but it's it has a three-dimensionality that's in a way that we really haven't seen on any other sci-fi movies or franchises that I can think of.
I do think it's interesting that we have tech that they're clearly, at least the chairs and stuff, and seem to be more advanced than, say, Picard era or the 24th century toys.
What makes you say that? Is it because they have seatbelts or something?
Well, the fact that the chairs float, everyone just bolts their chairs to the floor.
Right,
in the 24th century, and here, and the thing is this is a Mad Max universe. This is a place where things have fallen apart. So the floating chairs are actually probably retro
old
to
technology. Just like everybody's got a floating chair. Duh.
Yeah. It's like Mad Max. Well, everybody's got a car. So.
I see, by the way, one of our commenters, Alexandra Sandu, says of Book, kind of cutting to the chase, that he's cute. And yeah, he's a good-looking dude. They're not shy about showing him off later on in the episode. I'm sure we'll throw up some photos of Beefcake Book when he's flexing it on the beach.
Yeah. I will say about Book, he makes the line about it belongs to itself or something to that effect.
Little hint of what's to come.
Yeah, well, to my mind, I thought that almost tips the hand too much. I immediately knew, okay, this guy's a good guy. He may not always be good, but he's definitely one of those scoundrels with a heart of gold, because nobody steals something. He was clearly rescuing something because it belonged to itself. And I thought, on one hand, I thought they tipped the hand too soon, because there was that any doubt that this guy was going to be all that dark.
I think he says that. I think he says it doesn't belong to you, is what he says.
No, he says it belongs to itself, or some words to that effect.
I didn't pick up on that. So good catch, Brian. You Sherlock Holmes of the holodeck. You. But yeah, like
I guess if no one else caught it, it wasn't too much of a tell. But
no, we're just dumb, Brian. We're just dumb. You're smart. I do, as far as like if you're going to kind of red herring something, when you have your hero betrayed by somebody, left to rot in like sort of a jail, at that point you kind of start to believe it. Let me ask you, Brian, did you start to later on when Book kind of throws her to the wolves? Were you like, oh, maybe not such a good guy?
I guess it did surprise me. I was absolutely caught flat-footed by that, and certainly in a bit more of an ambiguous place for several minutes before I began to, before more evidence about more of Book's personality and motives unfolded, and I began to say, no, I had him pegged right to begin with. But yeah,
once you had eliminated the possible, whatever remained, however unlikely, had to be the truth. However that goes.
Yeah. Yes. In the chat, Pastel Pirate also agrees with Alexandra. She says, I agree, he's pretty cute. And Starfleet Boy adds, Book's husband material. So, he seems to be a fan favorite already after one appearance. And speaking of appearances, we get a wormhole that appears in front of Book during his space getaway, his space car chase, I guess.
Yeah.
And Michael Burnham crashes into his life by colliding into his ship. So this is their meet cute.
That red angel suit has got to have some pretty good shock absorbers. And I'm pretty sure it does.
There's a precedent for 23rd century technology that can pad a suit for atmospheric re-entry, and it's actually something that was supposed to be used for recreation by Kirk in a deleted scene on Star Trek Generations.
Yeah. I mean, technically all you need is some structural integrity fields and some inertial dampeners, and it worked just fine. I have to admit
aren't they moving at like relativistic speeds?
Not by the time she hits the ground. I'm not actually
complaining, mind you. I'm perfectly fine with it. It was cool. They didn't make out like it was that big a crazy impact. I remember when I was watching that Superman Returns movie, and
speaking of Superman, Man of Steel had the programmable matter. Also, you said you weren't sure where else had that technology.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, prior to that, in Superman Returns, when Superman saves the plane, and you see Lois gets bounced around that cabin while he's having this very difficult landing of the plane. there's a lot of cool effects in there, but she gets banged around so much that I'm like, how is she not dead? and here I was like, she got a spacesuit on. It's super crazy high tech. Of course she's okay.
I figured there was some timey-wimey thing going on with her when she made the initial impact with the ship.
Sure.
I have to admit, I don't know if I would have gone quite as crazy as they did with the impacting the ground, just because I'd want to draw a distinction between 23rd century technology and 32nd century technology. And by starting out with 23rd century technology being so amazing, I think it undercuts what we're going to see later on a bit.
That's a problem they're going to have throughout the remainder of the show.
Yeah.
And I have several examples of that I'm going to point out in this episode.
Yeah.
But they also went to Iceland to shoot some of these locations. So a very, very beautiful location. They added in some CG moons to make it look more alien.
Iceland of the 32nd century.
The only other time Star Trek has shot in Iceland was in Star Trek Into Darkness when Dr. McCoy had to deactivate that torpedo.
Oh, yeah.
It's cool looking. I really like the visuals.
Yep. I did love
it. Is literally dark because of like volcanic rock.
Yeah. I did, again, as I said before from the previous one of our previous sessions, I love the bug eating the flying bug. And the basic message is this world will eat Michael Burnham or eats angels for breakfast. And I was like, nice way to set that up. So,
Yeah.
Well, there is a bug of sorts, and it does eat some people in the last scene or so in the show.
Yeah.
Much bigger bug at this point.
It does actually eat the angel.
Mm-hmm.
But part of why I enjoyed them doing this whole episode of Burnham on her own or forcing her to team up with Book is that you really feel the isolation that she'd be experiencing separated from her ship. All she has is the Red Angel suit, and she loses that almost immediately upon arrival. She has that little backpack that had all the gear in it, the communicator and the phaser and some rations, and she called the badge a Delta shield, which
is that like the first time that's actually been labeled. You've heard the terminology for that in Star Trek in canon.
I think so. Yeah.
This little pack, her little gear pack, the little micro gear pack, I feel would be like one of the cooler things that they could recreate for one of their way overpriced things for Trekkies to put on their walls.
Yeah, I really want this, actually.
Yeah, it looks dope as hell.
Recreation of the prop. But so before I watched this episode, I did a binge watch of the previous 2 seasons of Discovery, and I tweeted about each episode. So hashtag Disco Rewatch. Anyone who wants to see my thoughts on that, check out my Twitter feed. But one of the things I was thinking, watching the season 2 finale going into this was that man, it'd be really cool if they explain like this last like red burst that Spock and Pike see on the Enterprise. Michael said that she would send a signal back, the 7th and final red burst, so that they know that she made it. And I was like, yeah, I wonder if the show will actually take the time to show that and set that up. And it would be really cool if they would just like take a few minutes to have her like, okay, like destroy the Red Angel suit, like clarify it's going to be gone, and it sends like the last red burst back in time. And I was like, I bet they don't even take the time to do that, though. And so when she actually does that and sends the Red Angel suit back, I was like very happy. I was like, oh, so they did like explain that. But also, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, I didn't catch exactly what she was doing the first time I watched it. But then when I rewatched it, she's sending the signal to her brother. Okay, awesome. I like it.
Yeah, it was only because they did the previously on thing that I was able to catch on to it.
Yeah.
But the other cool thing about her in this opening is when she scans for life forms and the machine like detects life forms, and she's like so ecstatic. And I was like, why are you so happy to like find? And then it occurred to me like, because Control killed all life in the future. And so like she found out that like she saved all life in the galaxy. And I was like, that must be like, that's an unfathomable level of satisfaction to be like, we did it. I actually pulled that off and saved the life of everything in the galaxy.
Well, you ever see those old board game ads where some kid's playing Battleship and he goes, I win at the end of it? It's just like that times 10.
I mean, at this point, she's going from, she could, if she starves to death on this rock ball, she can say it's worth it. The moment she knows she saved the galaxy.
She doesn't know where the ship is. She doesn't know where she is, but like all of that stuff is like secondary. Like life did not go extinct. That is a huge win.
Yes.
I only took it as that there's life on the planet, since the show, the previously on part, didn't make any particular reminder of precisely what their mission was against Control.
Yeah.
So it seemed a little over the top to me. It was one of those things where I was like, well, rated in Burnham. I think I like your point, Fathery, about that, but I did not perceive it that way because they did not contextualize it that way.
Yeah, I think it's 100% intentional, though. If you watch the episodes back to back, it's undeniably intentional.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense for back to back viewers.
Yeah, I did have the question. She opens up the helmet and like spits out a bunch of water. Is that supposed to be vomit, or what was that?
Yeah, that's probably like in the Abyss when they must use some sort of liquid, oxygenated liquid or something.
I guess, did they have that in the preview at the end of season 2 and I missed that?
I think it's just weird tech stuff.
I just thought it was vomit.
Okay.
Oh, really? No, I Brian, like you, I took it to be a liquid medium through which she was breathing or something. I think it was just the tech guys kind of wanting to throw a little bit of, kind of weirder future tech in there. It's
I wonder if there was supposed to be more to the landing, like the suit seeing the impact fills its interior up with some sort of expanded fluid to cushion the thing, and that when it opens, a bunch is supposed to run out, and then she spits it out, and then they decided to drop that, but for some reason kept that little.
I bet it could be something like that.
So I do still hate how people in Discovery hold their communicators. It bugs
have
me.
they all been doing that sort of sideways thing? I noticed
it's just no. It's there's a precedent for this. So, I guess Kirk was the first person to hold his communicator upright, and then that set the standard, and everything changed, and that's why everyone does it. Kirk holds their communicator.
I want to see
Kirk
some
style.
like an old timer in there who kind of is like not familiar with the technology, and he like opens it up and he's holding the halves in each hand, and like talking to it like this and moving to.
No, see, I think they should hold it up to their head like that, I did love how excited she was also as I about the life thing. That was very, very cool. And I like what she did afterwards, where she starts doing this kind of grounding ritual to try to take control and focus. And it felt very much like something that must be a Vulcan thing.
I like that.
It also Vulcan discipline to me.
Yeah. It also felt like it could almost serve as not a focused on like this, but like as a thematic for the season, in fact, because she kind of like this is like The Martian. This is like you're in a bad situation, start one foot in front of the other, and that's literally like the last words before they wrap the cold open, and she just says walk, and starts painfully somewhat, it looks like walking. And I feel like thematically it was a nice visual metaphor.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel like all of that was some sort of Vulcan technique that she was invoking to bring herself back under control and focus on what she needed to do and not get panicked or depressed about the direness of her situation.
And I actually didn't think it was that entertaining to watch. I think it's kind of weird when they have like characters like in scenes by themselves, and they kind of feel like they're kind of forced to talk to themselves because they want to have like some dialogue on screen. But it totally makes sense as like, it's like some Vulcan discipline thing. It just, for me, it wasn't fun to watch. I didn't really connect to that.
I mean, thanks to Fathery. Fathery, all I could think was the fear is the mind killer speech. I was like, this is the Vulcan equivalent of that. I've got
Father's going to be watching Dune, and Paul's going to do that, and he's going to be like, shut up, Paul.
Yeah.
We know.
No, we got some changes to our opening title sequence like they do every season with Discovery, but those green time crystals at the beginning, those are now red dilithium crystals, I guess.
Nice. They got the color right.
What's funny is that when the night this episode aired, I was actually messaging Brian and Dave, talking to them about how I was rewatching Discovery season 2 finale and how I hate the .7s, those little repair droids on the Enterprise. I hate them. I think they're stupid. I don't want them in my Star Trek. And then I like almost shortly after that, like within 30 minutes of me sending that message, I'm watching this new episode of Discovery, and I see these little robot things in the opening titles. I was like, oh no, no, anything but these.
They're so adorable. They're so adorable, Fathery. I'm going to get you a plush one when they make it.
We have robots in the opening sequence now.
But it is different from the other robots, but it looks like an evolution of them. Is that the deal?
It's a Starfleet robot, so I think it's something we'll see later in the season.
Yeah.
They used to have in there. They had a like a TOS phaser that explodes and then like gets reconstructed as a Discovery phaser. Yeah. Here we see like a Discovery phaser do that. It like blows up and then comes back together, and it's a future 32nd century weapon of some kind. Looks like a hand phaser. We also see like Book's ship has been included along with the
Book
Discovery.
Ship have a name?
No, I don't think they ever give the name of that ship. I was listening for it.
All right.
And we see the new Starfleet Delta Shield, as I guess it's called, or probably still works as a comm badge. I'm hoping that when we see these, by the way, that they're all like mobile transporters and people can just beam everywhere. I think that'd be pretty cool.
It certainly will be hard to explain why our heroes don't quickly get their hands on that tech, given that it seems to be pretty common.
But yeah, that was our opening credit sequence. And then we pick up with Michael approaching Book's ship. And it seems pretty advanced. It has like some type of like cloaking technology, not just cloaking technology, but like it creates like a holographic image to like show like it's not actually in a crater or like in the water. Yeah, it creates like a really good illusion. So it's a very good cloak,
especially for a crashed ship. It has a crash. My ship has been crashed setting that you can check that box, and then it will configure itself to obscure the crater of the crash.
Fathery, this still frame that you've got is a fantastic still frame of Book lunging at Burnham with a knife, and while she looks terrified as she notices it, it looks like it's a clip from a horror movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like Psycho or something.
This is a really good fight sequence when they bump into each other.
Yeah.
Yes. And
very tough, very fast.
Oh, and Book is the aggressor. So he lives in kind of a rough universe. He doesn't trust the stranger that he just met. He's like no, I'm suspicious of you. No one comes out here for no good reason. You're trying to steal my cargo, aren't you? And she's trying to calm him down. And she the phrase that she uses is, I'm not fighting you, you're fighting me. But when she pulls out the 23rd century phaser on him, he's like, oh, like you have like an antique pointed to my head. And you can kind of see like the gears turning, the wheels turning in his eyes. Like he's starting to come up with like the scheme now of how he can use her to his advantage. Now, eventually we learn his end goal is a noble goal. He's actually doing some good in the universe, but he clearly like has no problem exploiting someone else or taking advantage of someone to reach those means through or reach those ends through any means necessary.
I imagine if he thought more of her at that point, that he might not be so quick to exploit her, because he clearly does value people of, I guess, merit.
Right.
But at this point, I think he's not really buying into what she's selling.
To compare it back to the other Star franchise that they really want to emulate in this episode, I think he basically feels like he's in Mos Eisley, and everyone he's around is a shithead. Like all these people are scum. So.
Or crazy in the case of Michael. Because Michael, let's face it, if you're out of context, Michael probably comes out and she's flying around in a spacesuit with angel wings. She's carrying antique weapons. She's got that damn Starfleet. She's got that damn Starfleet arrowhead, which basically just says "I'm wackadoodle" across her chest. So.
I see in our comments, Early Gray Trekkie 1701 says they were surprised Burnham managed to overpower Book. And there we go. And I was thinking, Burnham pretty much has probably some pretty notable combat training.
Two words. Two words. Seuss Mana.
Is that Vulcan Kung Fu?
Yeah, Vulcan martial arts.
I guess we know that that Book is a survivor of sorts. He's definitely got an edge, but I guess we don't know like what his formal training is. He's lives by his wits. He knows how to fight, but I don't know that his training has maybe been as hard as hers.
Don't make him too good at everything. Like, I'm okay with him. He's good at so many things that we see in this episode. Like, but okay, if someone's like a black belt in kung fu, he can't fight them. Like that, I think that's reasonably balanced. What do y'all think of his ship? Both the exterior design and the interior that we get to see here.
I really liked it. I thought it was cool, the metal and the wood. I also just like their chemistry together right off the bat. Even
their chemistry is amazing.
Yeah, and I think even though we talked about we find out he's very much playing her, but I think she's playing him. I think that whole I have no one to trust but you, please scene is her playing him. She is deciding to deploy poor. I think she's decided to deploy the poor lost girl, but
she is the poor lost girl. He literally is her only hope.
Yeah, but she also tends to be a lot more self-confident, and I think she just realizes that perhaps the best way to appeal to this guy, I think she sizes him up and says, this guy's got a heart of gold underneath all his assholeness. I just need to touch the heart of gold, and he'll help me out here a bit. So I'm just going to play like the little lost girl, and I was fine with that.
They're both screen, Brian.
The second time I watched it, I was like, yeah, they're both mind fucking each other. I kind of like it. They're both.
I agree with Dave. I think she like legitimately had like no other options.
I don't think she does, but I think the way it throws that vulnerability out in front of him is a tool to manipulate him and to get him.
You're correct, Brian, that she is not usually one to show vulnerability that quickly.
Yeah.
Arguably, after the episode she's just been through, and maybe Father, you having just watched them right up there. This was pretty emotional stuff. Like half an hour ago for her, all hell was breaking loose, and or something like that.
Well, given the distance she had to walk, it was probably like 12 hours ago. Given how far she had to walk,
a bad day though.
She was
really
like telling her brother, "I'll never see you again," but I'm glad like we finally like learned to love each other.
What I think the truth of it is that I want to say that I think the writers, they do sometimes choose like to sort of focus on one thing or another with the character, and they will allow their personalities to change a little bit just because that's the new direction of the character. And I think they wanted a Burnham who's a little bit maybe more in touch with her emotions, who can maybe show some vulnerability. I think that is just what they wanted from that scene, but I'm willing to entertain Brian's crazy transwarp beaming theory of Michael Burnham, the con woman. If we, I'll view it. I'll look at it again at some point, and I'll see how crazy.
I certainly enjoy the relationship much more between the two of them if they're both kind of putting a spin on their performances for each other. I think that I like the idea that they're both kind of trying to leverage the other to get what they need a little bit, while still being mostly honest. And obviously, Book is the much bigger asshole in this. Michael's essentially being completely truthful. She's just the spin she puts on her facts. The truth that she presents is perhaps seemed a little more damsel in distress than I'm used to Michael. And that's why I feel like it rang false enough to me to feel
I don't think she's ever been this compromised before. I don't think she's ever been as stripped of all resources as she is
maybe
here.
Maybe in the first or second episode or whatever when she was a prisoner.
I think there are times when she's been at a lower point as far as available emotional energy than this. She just saved the whole fucking galaxy, I guess, at this point. So there's always she's always going to have that no matter what happens.
Father, regarding the ship, real quick, one of the just neat things about his ship is that it has those nice kind of organic lines around it. That there definitely is an aesthetic to this future. That is, I know it's not going to be uniform, but it looks like it's going to include some what would feel very exotic to normal Star Trek 23rd, 24th century stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what made it work for me, what made the tech really work for me, is that it's still like familiar Star Trek stuff. When Michael's looking at it, she's like, "Oh, like subspace," and
right. She immediately pieces together the basic components of the bridge.
It's like a really advanced subspace communicator.
Yeah, and they get their technobabble right, which is nice. It isn't just, I mean, they could have gotten away with just making stuff up and saying it's the 32nd century, deal with it. But they actually integrate it into the tapestry of Star Trek technobabble.
Yeah.
I like that he says he need his dilithium regenerator is busted, because the last 2 episodes they make that huge deal about having to go to Poe's planet to get a dilithium recrystallizer, and that's the special new hot tech that could change the face of the Federation. And by the time they get to the 32nd century, this Han Solo type has a broken one on his ship.
The first guy you bump into has one.
Yes, and that was beautifully done for those who are paying attention to those little bitty details. I also like that the ship has multiple drives. It's got a solar tachyon drive. It's got a slipstream drive, which I love.
About all that in the Gorn eggs.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from the point of view of presenting us a believable future, they don't just make up stuff out of wholesale. They actually pick and choose some super tech that we got glimpses of in the 24th century and say, okay, this is how they do things now, or at least this is how Book does things on his ship. And so again, they put in the extra effort and research. And I like the idea that he has multiple drives, that like it's like a hybrid, it does both battery and gas, kind of a thing. I also like that he calls her Rocket Girl. I don't know if they're going to keep that or not, but I totally want him to keep calling her Rocket Girl.
Father, you have brought up the slides of his fat cat.
Yeah, he has a cat named Grudge because he says she's heavy and all mine.
Yes.
So this man can hold a grudge, I guess.
Yep. And you have to be a big.
I'm literally holding grudge. The cat.
Yes.
I did not know what that meant, so thank you for clarifying it for me. I am not holodeck Sherlock.
No, there were many hold a grudge jokes going around my household after we saw that one.
But it is a big, very beautiful, pretty cat.
Burnham strikes up a deal with him. She says, "Look, I need to get to some long-range subspace communicator to reach my ship, to try to find them, try to contact them. Here, I have like this antique tricorder. Can this buy you some of the dilithium that you need?" Because he explains to her that he needs dilithium or Benamite. He brings up Benamite. I'll talk about that in the Gorn eggs. But yeah, basically like he's stranded here. He has valuable cargo, has to be moved quickly to its destination. She's like, okay, I'll help you out if you help me out. Let's trade this tricorder for some dilithium. So they begin walking to what he calls Mercantile. They cloak his ship and take off walking across Iceland. And we get a little backstory here. He explains to Michael there was an event called the Burn. He's surprised that she doesn't know about it. But yeah, we learn what's happened to the Federation, what's happened to Starfleet. About 100 or 120 years prior to this, one day, most dilithium, not all of it, but most of it went boom. And Michael says that's the heart of every warp-capable ship. I think that is debatable based on what we know about warp technology in Star Trek, but the writers are trying to use previously established.
Well, is dilithium not fueling most Star Trek ships?
The most of them, sure, certainly. I think Voyager has stumbled across a few oddballs from time to time, but certainly the Federation runs on dilithium. That is incontrovertible.
So,
it would definitely be absolutely devastating to the Federation and the Klingon Empire.
Right. But it wasn't just that they couldn't use it anymore, but literally, presumably, the ships driving around. Detonated.
The worst thing you can possibly have is an explosion inside your antimatter reactor.
I guess even if gas across the United or the whole world of our present, if all gas-powered things exploded, you could get some sense of it.
Yeah, it'd be like if all the gasoline blew up at the same time.
Now, I think this is a dumb Kelvin-style plot point or Star Wars style. It's so early on that I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I do remember that some of the Red Angel stuff was pretty dopey too. And I hope there's a lot more to it than this, because that's just like a Bond villain kind of.
See, I like the elegance of it. I like the fact that it's not just some sort of random muon wave that did something weird. It's like something very, you can lock on. Okay, they all have dilithiums in their engines. If if a hand grenade went off wherever there was the dilithium
that's
crystal,
just ridiculous. That's like magic.
dilithium has always been the magic crystal of Star Trek. If there's some sort of something that you could transmit,
it has to be somewhat analogous to something that we can wrap our heads around in the present. Star Trek's always been that way. And if there, it'd be like saying, yes, there's somebody in one of the Fast and Furious movies who's invented something that will make all gasoline-powered stuff blow up. And I'm like, maybe in Fast and Furious they might do that. I don't know. But I want Star Trek stuff that has, like, I don't know, more relevance.
radiation pulse the right rate to trigger, and that would do it. I mean, that's all the technobabble you need, and since it's all one material, I don't know. I really thought it was quite elegant. It also, I liked how it would have slowly killed the Federation as opposed to instantly. It would have just like mortally wounded the Federation, and then it would have slowly bled out from losing almost every ship. Any ship that had its warp reactor running, even on standby, and you notice the Enterprise always has their reactor on standby unless they're in dry dock. And even if
Ryan,
you were in dry dock, there's probably an antimatter reactor running the dry dock that blew up and would have taken out the ship in the dry dock. So.
Brian, do you think that this was a just your guess? Do you think it was a deliberate attempt to take out the Federation, or that it was like some sort of other plot that just happened to have that effect? The weird conspiracy theory thing that popped into my head on second viewing is that this would have had no effect on one other government, or a minimal effect on another government, the Romulan Star Empire, which uses quantum singularities for its power source.
That's what I was going to bring up, and
somebody blew up the Romulan Star Empire. So now I'm wondering,
there were so many hundreds of years earlier that I think the Romulans might be somewhat recovered by this point, and
they could be part of the Federation by this point.
If there's alternative power sources to warp drive in the 24th century, I think that by the time that the burn happens, there would be a lot more. So I thought it was kind of a stretch based on what we know about warp technology. I thought it was kind of a stretch to think that everything would be that dependent on dilithium that far into the future, but whatever.
Well, I guess there's a lot of drawbacks to quantum singularity drive, at least how it's depicted, because you can't switch it off.
But the Remans mined dilithium. There were dilithium mines on Remus. So the Romulans used dilithium for something.
Yeah, no, the switch over to quantum singularity appears to have occurred with the construction of those new warbirds. That science ship that they rescue, where I think Geordi and Ro get knocked out of phase. They talk about that ship has an antimatter reactor with traditional dilithium. So it appears that only the biggest and best Romulan ships get quantum singularity drives. Everything else is actually just like the Federation. So I'll admit it's a wackadoodle conspiracy theory that the one government that might have been able to shrug this off or with minimal damage is also the one that happened to have gotten wiped out earlier. But you're right, with the huge time scales involved, it's unlikely.
We have it recorded, so if anything comes of it, you will win $1,000.
But I like the elegance of it, regardless of whether it ever ties back into the Hobus detonation or whatever they're calling the Romulan mess these days. But I was like, it's nice, it's functional, it doesn't have anything to do with the Federation's ideals or stuff falling apart, and yet you can see how this. If suddenly 99% of all your starships were gone, and you would have had massive explosions. I think there's antimatter reactors on a lot of planets, and even in orbit, having a bunch of ships explode would probably cause massive ecological destruction.
Well, on some level, it's almost too grimdark for me, because it does mean millions and millions of deaths,
billions.
In addition to all of the effects of whatever things that the Federation was protecting suddenly became unprotected. And we'll see how it plays out.
That's what
Father,
I
do you
said.
have a-
Soul-suckingly dark. That's how I described it at the beginning.
I think because they didn't linger on it, it didn't feel that way to me. Because Burnham didn't say, "Oh my God, millions of deaths, planets falling into destruction." We didn't pause to think about it too much.
Yeah,
but
I'm not.
Father, what's your quick take?
I'm not convinced that it would have gone down exactly like that, but what Ryan said makes sense. I don't know if the writers of the show think about the technology as much as Brian does, so I don't know if I'm ready to read that much into it and assume that that's how it happened. I think we'll get more. What I did like about it, though, is that they don't draw out this mystery of, like, what is the bird? Like, I'm glad they didn't try to, like, build that up to, like, a dramatic reveal.
It is true. They just knock it out right, in the first, 15, 20 minutes?
And there's still like the opportunity to explore more with it.
Look at right there, right on that slide. That is the face of somebody who's realized that billions of people died, and this guy's shrugging it off because it's old history to him.
Well, I believe that's actually a scene that I took note of. So what are you saying, Father?
That's not the context they establish in the episode. In the episode, she's talking about how, like, she's upset about, like, the Federation.
He says, "Leave your badge behind where we're going."
Okay.
And her face has this drops, like it suddenly does hit her that, like, the Federation is like pariahs. So anybody would be seen as like a madman or something. And then, but what I liked is that she kind of screws up her face and gets this kind of look of grim resolution within a few seconds of that, and it's an itch. Like, you go back and watch it. It's fascinating to watch the facial acting that Sonequa Martin.
She has such an expressive face. If you see her in person, like, her face is like constantly doing stuff. But any scene in Discovery, if you go back and watch, like, watch her face while she's acting. Like, it's so natural that I think it often gets overlooked. But, like, she's always communicating information to the audience with her face on a level that you might not even, like, notice how exact it is. And in this episode, they give her so much additional range that she like her faces in this episode are amazing.
Yeah, well, no, I said right here in my notes, at this point that we're looking at, Martin Green acts the hell out of this. She's absolutely amazing in this episode. It's just fun to see her go through the highs and the lows. Just that more than anything is what makes this a work of art for me.
Let's move on to her drug days.
Well, I did have a question. If you can recrystallize dilithium, does it make a valid currency? But I guess you need some dilithium to make I guess that just restores it. It doesn't when it gets worn out in your reactor, it doesn't actually grow more.
Like, I think, like, you can, like, recharge a battery only so many times, and then eventually like it's kind of like, maybe dilithium is kind of like lithium.
Yeah, or maybe you need a battery to be able to recharge a battery, and now if most of the batteries are gone and batteries are mined, so it's not like you can just build more of them, then suddenly the batteries are very valuable. So it makes some sort of sense.
Well, speaking of Mos Eisley in the other Star franchise, they overlook the kind of the spaceport that they're going to from a cliff, and we get our look at Requiem. They're on the planet Heim, and this location is called Requiem.
How do you spell the planet's name? I didn't have the subtitles running.
Hime. Okay.
That is a cool looking spaceport. It almost looks like non-Star Trek or Star Wars futurism.
I actually thought it looked too generic to stuff we'd seen in Star Trek. Actually, I thought it didn't look different enough. It comes off as a lot like Stardust City Rag to me, like from Picard.
Right, you wanted some more exotic stuff.
Yeah, it didn't scream 32nd century, but again, there's probably been a lot of regression post burn. So they established that this is an operation that's ran by an Andorian Orion team up. Which was interesting, and they have, like, these Andorian security keeping people out. They're scanning the people who come in, but they have these little drones that they kind of just do whatever the story needs them to do. The drones can drug you. They can be like security cameras. They can scan you. I think it suggests that the Book has some type of implant or something on his arm that, like, identifies him as a courier, and then Burnham.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% clear, but that seemed to be the context of it.
We get our first look at their hand cannon thing. That, like, when Burnham has, like, no identification, this gun kind of just materializes on the arm of the Andorian security guy. So I thought that was kind of cool. Future
that's the Metroid. That's the gun from the Metroid games.
Yeah,
or maybe Mega Man.
But they Book is really cool how he's able to like talk his way through this Andorian guy. And one of the things that impressed me about Book is that he feels like such like a genuine British character, not like American writers trying to write a British character. Like when he tells the Andorian, pretend you're not an Andorian for 1 second and don't be a Shirley bastard. It just felt it felt like very like natural and very Brit. And he's kind of hard to understand because he talks so fast and he has this Cockney accent he's from Hackney in London, same neighborhood that Marina Sirtis is from. He has like the same accent that Marina has in real life when she's not in character. But
I like his voice and accent a lot. It did give me a few fits without subtitles.
But yeah, he convinces the not the Andorian but the boss watching on the security camera to let them in because this is the antique TOS-esque Star Trek props are of high value to collectors. Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of meta how like, I actually like really want to own these props. Like there's Star Trek collectors who would pay a lot of money for this. And
it did occur to me watching this, Michael Burnham has never seen a replicator.
Well, they have synthesizers that are the same thing in all but name.
They have to replicate their bits separately and then assemble them.
What are you basing that on?
We see them when they put the suit together, the time suit. They can't just replicate the suit wholesale. They have to replicate each bit of it and assemble the suits in piece by piece.
Is that just because it was so like super high tech?
So why would it make a difference? Either you can synthesize the part or you can't.
I don't know. A 3D printer could print a small little toy, but it couldn't reprint a supercomputer.
In season one, we see a disco synthesizer create like the jumpsuit for Michael Burnham.
Yeah, a uniform.
It looked like some materials might be a little complicated for it, but it's basically a replicator.
Yeah. The shitty ass 23rd century synthesizers are going to look like crap next to a 24th century replicator, and I kind of want to see a scene where she gets to see what a 24th or a 32nd century replicator could do.
But it's a 32nd century downgraded one because of all the problems.
Well, yeah.
It would actually aggravate me if the show is constantly Michael being like impressed by like all this technology. That,
I
think they were getting through most of that in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, for example, a 32nd century replicator might be able to create people. You might be able to just copy a person with a couple of button pushes. There's no reason why that couldn't be a thing in the 32nd century. That would
I would hope that ethically, maybe it wouldn't be a thing. But,
yeah, I mean that you don't do it without permission anyway. But yeah, I would like to. I certainly would like to see what they can do with a replicator in the 32nd century at some point.
I was just happy to see that the Andorians had old school Andorian haircuts. They were very retro.
They've always looked like that in Discovery, though. They've always
it's sort of, except for the crazy eyebrow thing, there was something about them that seemed particularly retro to me. I don't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just felt that way. That said, well, carry on. I'll have more thoughts when we get to the interrogation.
Well, the important thing here is Book explains the couriers and how that works. And he is a courier. And basically there's holographic sellers and holographic buyers that are making deals. And then they hire a courier. And you're paid just enough dilithium to make the transfer. The Orion and Dorian organization here, I guess, like they control a certain cache of dilithium. And so they're kind of stingy with it. They pay you just enough. So like travel is very restricted. And the only reason why he's traveling is because he's like delivering these items. He's basically like an Amazon delivery guy. Mm-hmm. But he's just
they made out that you can only occasionally run your own deal, so it doesn't sound very lucrative. It sounds like you, like anything else, struggle to get by.
We see the dilithium crystals. They're actually like being like handed off, like they're being like paid in payments. They're just like these little crystals that you can conveniently show visually on screen. And Burnham sees the portable transporters, and she is impressed with that. But this is where we get the betrayal. Book, instead of taking her to the communication station, he takes her to the vault, which I guess is like where they have dilithium or some other values are stored, and she's like captured by a security device, and then then Book takes her tricorder, and Burnham is arrested by these two security guys that I thought these guys were pretty funny. I had a good time with these two dumb detective types.
You know that guy. If you, Father, did you watch enough Seinfeld to know Elaine's boyfriend Putty, played by Patrick Warburton?
Yeah,
that's the tall and Orion looks like Patrick Warburton of Orion.
I like that he's a big dude. I like that they got like a big dude Orion, because like Orions are all like big guys on Enterprise, and then in Discovery they get like all like these like skinny guys to play.
Yeah.
So like this guy's kind of bulkier. And also, like, Endorians are kind of short. I mean, maybe because Jeffrey Combs is a short guy and he played the most notable Endorian with Shran on Enterprise. So I kind of think of, like, Endorians as short. So I like seeing, like, this big Orion guy teamed up with, like, this short Endorian dude. But, yeah, like, they have Michael Burnham captured. And they're just a couple of pricks, which I like because they felt like real life law enforcement.
Say again?
They felt like real life law enforcement, so it felt appropriate. They were a couple of pricks because blue lives don't matter unless you're an Endorian.
Go on, Father. You've prepared a statement, I believe. I had a sort of mixed feelings about that scene. I did like their repartee. I thought they were kind of goofy, funny, but it also was one of those things that stood out to me as like, I don't know, kind of too quirky, goofy. I think wanted it to maybe be a little bit darker overtly. But,
I like the fact that the standard thing you do in this situation is have them be a couple of ruthless people who are like, you tried to break into our vault. Now we will torture you to death. Mwahaha. And I liked how they're like, who the hell are you? Why the hell are you trying to break in our vault? And, they just shoot her up with some drugs and talk about sandwiches. And then when she's like, this other guy did it all, they're like, let's go look into this other guy. She's probably not talking. She might not be talking crap. Let's go.
I will agree. I am glad that they didn't go the route of the grimdark guards. I'm maybe speaking more to the episode's overall tone than this specific scene, but I do agree. I wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about like the interrogation when they drug her, and this is what I was talking about with Sonequa Martin Green. If you watch her face during this part, like she comes up with like some of the most like hilarious facial expressions, and they seem like
I wonder how many different edits there were of that.
They come off as real. They don't seem like someone who's like overacting. They're like, oh yeah, she seems like someone who's actually under the influence of some substance. But we get to like get in her head a little bit with like some of the things that she reveals with this stuff that was, I guess, intended to like loosen her up and make her talkative.
Right. She talks about overcompensating and what I forget what all else she mentions. That she's trying to take other people's problems on her own for her own or something.
Yeah, but even before that, when she talks about how like she saved everything.
Oh yeah.
Like she threw away like everything that she knew to save all the things.
Hey, do those two guards, do they get killed?
Yeah.
Okay, that's too bad.
They get ate by the worm.
Yeah. I kind of want a little mini series about them.
Being ate by the worm is not as final as it might appear.
That's true, but they had bloodier.
Yeah, I half wondered when that thing did it. I was like, wait, is this that same thing from Lower Decks that chewed on Boimler for a while? It's not, but
Spider Cow.
Yeah,
I did think that was the most surprising of the Gorn eggs.
But they could still do a short trek with these two. It would just have to be set before this.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Show these two doofuses that have the kind of amusing dumb banter.
You could even have Book in it too if you're setting it as a prequel.
I like how she's talking about Book. How like this courier who can't fly for shit and he was hauling stolen cargo. We're like, oh, stolen cargo.
That's another thing. She plays all like, "Oh, I'm helpless. Please help me, Mr. Book." But here she's like, "Yeah, that guy's a freaking idiot." When we get to actually see what she thinks of him, she's got some pretty,
Fair point. She's a little judgy.
Yeah, because this is after he's betrayed her.
But she's referencing stuff from before then. So.
This is after he's shown his true colors. But speaking of Book, he is off trying to make a deal with her. I guess get some dilithium for her tricorder. You see him talking to like an Orion woman who turns them down, and then Cosmo in a very Greedo style shows up behind him, and Cosmo is he wants his cargo back, and he threatens to kill Grudge. So I like that this rival, this enemy of Book is familiar enough with him, he knows his cat, and he's like, I'm gonna roast your cat and I'm gonna feed her to a starving planet.
I didn't get she will feed a whole planet.
I guess he's a fat cat.
He's commenting on how big the cat is.
Your cat is so fat.
Yeah, well, he's needling him because it's a personal thing, and he's making your cat is fat joke. That's messed up. That's fucked up, dude.
But Burnham and the security personnel show up, and Cosmo is talking about how he wants to shoot Book, he wants to shoot Burnham. He's all pissed off. He's got he wants to get his cargo back. And I'm not real clear on. It seemed a little forced, I guess. But Burnham, in her intoxicated state, eventually realizes, I guess, her only way out is to team up with this guy who just betrayed her. Now that they're both in trouble.
I do like how she's just able, even while drugged, to tap dance her way through these situations. She's stuck on a planet. She convinces this guy to help her. He betrays her. She immediately convinces the two guards who find her to help her, and then immediately dances right back into Book circle when it determines that that's the best way to go. I love the versatility of improving her way through all of these situations.
Well, part of it I felt was just the script trying to get to the action beat that it wanted to pull off.
I totally bought it. I thought it was a great fun. I love the swapping back.
I liked her little sort of visual wink or whatever to him, and then they just start kicking some ass.
Yeah,
I was less enthused about her in her inebriated state, just dodging all of this gunfire. That was another one of those things where I was like, this is very Star Wars or James Bond. It just doesn't feel like Star Trek.
The bad guys can't shoot. The bad guys can't aim for shit.
I was also a little weirded out. I know they're some pretty bad dudes, but she's relatively new to the situation and doesn't know a whole lot about it. And she just starts popping, killing these dudes.
They murder a shitload of people in this episode. And I feel like one line of dialogue would have fixed it if she just said, where's the stun setting on these things? And the book is stun setting. They haven't made one of those in years or something like that. It would have taken 10 seconds of screen time.
No, I agree. What I would have said had the response be is they've all got interference beams. Stun won't work on them, or something like that. That somebody's got you can just put a gadget on your belt that makes you immune to stun blasts in the 32nd century.
But I was laughing. At her. Some of her facial expressions she's making during the end. We also there is one non-lethal weapon. I guess there's the blue handheld device that has the wide range shockwave that knocks people back. But other than that,
the Matrix thing from the Transformers movie or whatever, the thing.
It does look like the way they hold the Autobot Matrix.
Yeah.
Kinda, I guess. But okay, so during this fight, and he actually tells her the adrenaline will make the drug wear off. So she starts getting a little bit more sober, I guess. She does spot some dilithium, and she dashes over to where it is while people are shooting at her and grabs up some of this dilithium. And then Book follows her, and then they're pointing their guns at each other where he's like, no, I need the dilithium. And she's like, I don't want to give it to you.
I give you the whip.
And then they're hit with the shockwave. So Book says, let's get out of here. He uses his portable transporter. And even though I did have some problems with the body count that they rack up with this, it would have been better if they were just stunning these people instead of disintegrating them.
Yeah.
It was incredibly fun to watch. I like the gimmick here. I love, by the way, that like she keeps punching Book. She keeps getting like, but yeah, basically
easy. That's the Pirates of the Caribbean Part 1 joke.
Yeah. I also like the way that rather than saying anything, they just show that these two people actually work amazingly well together. But
true.
you know, the two of them would never admit it, but they're actually making an amazing team on screen. And I like the relative subtlety of that. They're not saying it; they just show it while having them punch each other in the face repeatedly and point guns at each other whenever they have a spare moment. I love the whole transporter chase sequence. I assume these transporters must be able to read your mind because they just slap them and they beam you someplace.
Yeah, we don't have time to question it, but
it's 32nd century. I can totally believe they do read your mind. Why not?
The episode doesn't like give you time to think about it. There's like, oh yeah, like the only rule is we have to wait 30 seconds and then boom, and then we can transport. But it was,
I guess with those teleporters, everybody becomes Nightcrawler from the X-Men, at least for a time.
They're called transporters in Star Trek.
Yeah, whatever. My point is Nightcrawler.
But I also loved that they were like on location. We got to see like that cool waterfall and some like the greenery there, and then they're back on like the volcanic ash. But it was very refreshing to me to be like off the ship and see like these vast landscapes and like these prettier locations. Even though like the color palette is a little drab, it was all like it was lit kind of bright, especially like the stuff like on the beach near the ship. And
my issue with Discovery in its earliest days, the first 2 episodes before they actually dropped Burnham off at the Discovery, was that the ensemble of the Discovery itself was kind of where things gel for me. And so I think the next episode is going to be interesting for me when I see the ensemble return, because although I think there was some good stuff in this episode, it's not kind of what I like about the show. I like the group. So,
question: have we ever seen a Discovery era phaser pistol, Starfleet phaser pistol, vaporize somebody? Do we know if they have that setting yet?
No, because like if they shoot someone, they just like leave like a hole in them. Like when she shot to Kuvma in the second episode, he just had like a big hole in his chest.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the Kirk era phasers could kill you or they could vaporize you, and that would have been, those are future phasers relative to what we see on Discovery. So I'm wondering, how impressive are these guns that can vaporize a whole body? We know the Klingons had them in the Discovery era, but would this be something that would impress Michael at all, or would she just say whatever, our phasers could do the same thing? And I'm just curious. I don't know.
Well, she got used to using it pretty quick. And there's like one part where they're like waiting for new guys to beam in, and then they just like vaporize all of them like as they're beaming in. So they're like racking up like spawn kills in a video game.
Yeah, it was like amazing.
Murder. But I will say, by the way, these look very beautiful in still frame, and that does indicate to me that even with those like basalt lakes or whatever, volcanic ash or whatever it is, that it's they found these really like a way to kind of make the visuals lush and have some cool imagery.
So,
and the way they escape is by the old cliche of like jumping off of a cliff when there's like bad guys coming at you. But Book transports them into the ocean, into the water, because they can't track you. I thought it was cool. Like we're learning like these little rules, and I'm hoping to be consistent with these. But okay, if you beam into water or beam into a physical location, you wouldn't want to do that one.
Yeah,
beam into something solid. But if you beam into something liquid also, they can't track that. So
I'm guessing the way that mechanism for that seemed to me would be, there's probably an energy burst whenever you materialize, but just like radios don't work underwater. If the waves don't propagate more than a few inches or feet underwater before they're damped out by the water. So that's why they can't see the burst. Oh, look, they just appeared over there, on their tricorders. That was my guess as to why it worked. It certainly made sense to me.
Well, one of the bad guys did manage to hit Burnham just barely. She was like grazed on her arm. She was shot, and she comments on like, it's been a long time since I've been shot or something like that. And then
It's time for a sexy patch up your friend scene.
Yeah, like Book shows his superpower here when he's able to say a weird chant that makes his forehead glow, and then kind of like, I guess, like a aloe vera plant
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
grows out of the ground, and he's able to like get some like a healing liquid out of it to patch up Michael Burnham's arm injury.
Yep.
And even this 32nd century man still carries a handkerchief. So I think it's weird because like I've never carried a handkerchief.
I thought that they nicely pointed out how weird that is. She's like, "You carry a handkerchief?"
Yeah, well, I think it was the show, like, as much as things change, some things are still the same, and there is still recognizable humanity in this far future.
Right. People do still sit on chairs and presumably sleep and things like that. We're not all just energy beings or some crazy, super crazy shit.
But Book reveals to her, is like, oh yeah, my little like personal device is actually able to do like long range subspace communication. You can try calling your ship on this. And she's mad, like, oh, you have this all this time, but she's unable to locate the Discovery. And she still has faith that like they're out there, that they're gonna make it. And he's seen her consistently be this true believer, is a term he keeps saying, true believer. I love that Book figures it out here. And maybe he suspected it all along, but he confirms his suspicions here when he asks, like, oh, are you a time traveler?
Yeah.
And apparently you can't mostly travel too much those in their future.
Yeah, they explain that the time travel has been destroyed. All time travel technology was abandoned after the temporal wars. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that they addressed that, because we've seen another Star Trek that 300 years prior to this, in the 29th century, like just like a typical starship, it seems like can beam you anywhere in space and time.
Well,
at least a wide range of space and time.
Yeah, I think it was a time fleet ship, but yes, they had Time Fleet had amazing time travel tech 300 years ago, and they used it pretty casually, relatively speaking.
So I'm glad they addressed that. So they are doing a pretty good job, not perfect, but pretty good job keeping track of all the existing stuff in continuity that would affect this time period.
I would say again, or not again, but I would say Book's reluctance to just say, "Oh, I've got a subspace radio right here. Why don't you use it?" does make a bit of sense when you realize that he's afraid that Cosmo's going to find him at any time, because transmitting a big signal from his ship is a bad idea. It would leave Cosmo right to the ship. But at some point, he finally decides that okay, I'm going to take the risk and let her make a call, just because I on some level I've come to respect her, or feel that she's that I've screwed her over and maybe she didn't deserve that, and I'm feeling guilty about that. But I can see why he kept that transmitter secret for so long, because it would have just given her away his position, or it could. And
he wouldn't have gotten his dilithium that he needed to save the worm.
Yes.
But they're ambushed when they make it back to his ship, and Cosmo is there, and Orion Man is there, and Dorian Man is there, and
is Morn Man?
Alurian.
I call him Morn Man.
Morn Man.
I like that Cosmo gets destroyed here when the Orion Man is like, what good is a courier who lets his cargo get stolen? He murders Cosmo. I guess that was a kind of a cheap way to set these guys up as like a more serious threat, and just remind the audience as well as remind our heroes that, like, these guys ain't playing around.
It also makes us feel better about how many of them we saw got killed.
Yeah, and how many we are about to see. How many we are about to see get killed? But
well, they've killed quite a few up by this point, but
that thing only kills 2 of them, I think. And then the rest to beam out.
Yeah, the rest are like, fuck this, and they go away. But they
look at this guy's face.
They force Book to give them the code to get in. Apparently, it was sticky, and Book is like, that's the damn.
Get your own password.
Get your own chip if you don't like it. But
I do love how they're kind of making fun of all the pi, alpha, gamma, 5683 tango codes that we see. No, it's sticky. Just
he has
sticky.
to use one number and one special character.
yeah, and one Greek letter. No, none of that. It's sticky. It's my damn ship.
We get the reveal of the transworm. That was the cargo that he was transporting, and Book tells Michael, close your eyes, and she trusts him. She closes her eyes, and this thing is kind of reminded me of Hypnotoad on Futurama, but I guess it can immobilize you by hypnotizing you. Everyone who's looking at it, their eyes start glowing, and then it comes down and it eats the Endorian. We see like blue blood splatter, and then
onto the lens. I like how it sprays all over the lens.
With Orion is devoured, and then the rest of the bad guy crew, they're like, yeah, I don't get paid enough for this. I'm out of here.
I was impressed that creature is resistant to disintegrators. That was like, wow. It's not like blowing man-sized holes in it or anything like that. It just kind of shrugs off those disintegrator blasts. And it's certainly a very unique and special creature. It's not just a
high level monster for the RPG game.
Yes, a very high level monster. Maybe it uses its psionic abilities to protect itself as well as hypnotize people.
It did try to eat Burnham, but Book talked it out of that. So it spits her up very cartoonishly. Michael Burnham kind of feels like a cartoon character in this episode a little bit.
Like a Lower Decks?
Yeah, like Boimler.
I wanted somebody to put together just like a 3-minute edit of all her goofiest moments. I feel like at that point, like not really, but it'd be a little like the Jar Jar effect where she's drunk, she's being spit out, she's falling down. Somebody make that edit for us.
But I like that it was a fun episode. I'm so tired of seeing Michael Burnham cry and just be miserable and just being like,
that's true.
Everybody hates you because you started the Klingon War. Like Spock hates you because you were mean to him as a little kid. It's like
nobody remembers any of that shit. She's got a clean slate.
Yeah, she's free. Like I want Burnham to be like free and liberated from all of that.
And Agreed. She just has to get chewed on by a big creature.
Yes. In classic Lower Decks fashion.
Yep. Well, it's kind of like if like an animal slobbers on you. It's kind of like how they present it.
Yeah.
But anyways,
so we get our sort of big reveal about the episode, which Brian was like, I suspected as much.
I didn't know what the nature of it would be. Simply that this guy they pretty much especially given that I knew he was going to be a regular. I figured, there's a heart of gold under this guy when they.
His name is in the opening credits, so you know he's going to be a good guy.
Yeah.
Or at least not all that bad. But when he said that, I was like, he's really not going to be all that bad.
What I really liked when they're on their quantum slipstream ride to Sanctuary 4 is that when Book explains like his abilities and his backstory, because the thing I was thinking when I was watching this is, like this Han Solo type, Star-Lord type character this is all feeling very trite to me. I've seen all of this before. I need something new. And they explain like the glowy they don't really explain the glowy forehead, but they hint at it. And he says, this is what I do. Like I rescue animals. My family were poachers. They kill things and I'm here to save them. This is Dave. This is why I thought you would have really liked the episode because of this character and because of his
you think I just like everybody who likes animals, Father?
Not just that, but also like his connection to like make plants grow or make worms calm down. He's like, it's kind of like an empathic thing. So I thought that would have resonated with you. And also like his idea of, and I don't think genetics actually works this way. And there's more to him, I think, that'll be explained later. But when he says, every now and then someone in the family is born like me. I guess that's
don't know if he's fully human. There could be all sorts of alien DNA.
Or he could have nanotech. He could have like nanotech.
Or he just might mean that he could have meant it a little more metaphorically, like every once in a while someone breaks from the family tradition of being a scumbag. Well, it did sound like he meant it almost in a literal way.
Well, I just assumed he has some latent recessive Tabacian genes from a hybrid great grandfather he had or something, and that every now and then those genes become expressed rather than recessive, and then he's got these psychic powers that can do stuff.
For those who didn't, the episode, what do they call the After Trek episode? Is that
Ready Room?
Ready Room. I will say that he touches on. They ask Will Wheaton asks him about those powers, and he keeps it pretty under close to the vest as far as he doesn't. There's no major spoilers, but he does say that they'll continue to explore that. But I would, by the way, encourage people to watch the Ready Room episode. He's a delightful interview. He tells some fun stories about Patrick Stewart, both working in the Royal Shakespeare Company with him. So if you like the character and you like that he's easy on the eyes, go watch him when he's just go watch the actor do his thing.
I was planning to finish it. I just didn't quite get to it. Today's been crazy voting and everything. So
voting is more important than this one thing.
Yes,
but only a little.
Yeah, I will say that I liked the. I thought that he's got this endangered species that apparently will have a chance to reproduce if he gets his button gear and gets this thing to its planet. And crazy Michael shows up, ruining his day. I'm much more willing to forgive his assholery around Crazy Michael when you find out that he's trying to stop the species from going extinct and he's on the clock. That is a much more forgivable motive to throw somebody under the bus than we often get.
I think that it makes sense as a reveal. I think part of the reason, Fathery, that it didn't particularly strike me. So part of it is an ephemeral thing. Like I can't quite say why something does or doesn't move me. Who knows? But I think part of it was that I don't know if I necessarily wanted to spend the whole episode thinking he was a bad guy, only to find out he was a good guy. Like I don't know if that's the arc, that's the depth of story that I want in Star Trek. It again feels more Kelvin, more Star Wars, more.
I never thought that he was going to be a bad guy. I thought it was kind of like. Oh, like when two superheroes meet in a comic and they fight each other.
Oh, sure, right. We find out the deeper truth that the slight heart of gold we saw earlier. We find out what the exact deal is with it, but it didn't. All I can say is that it didn't particularly move me. Nor did the next scene, which I know did with most people. Although there were parts of the next scene.
The scene by the lake.
I'm talking about the scene that we're about to get to that has to do with the last vestige of Star.
Okay. Well, before we move on to that, I did want to say his powers. It might just be because that's the other book I'm reading besides Dune is Octavia Butler's Earthseed. But the idea that they have these people who occasionally mutants who occasionally are called sharers, who have this empathic sense that can be a real hindrance, which is what he describes it as. It can be a real pain that you can empathize with these other creatures, and that also takes place in a kind of an apocalyptic world that's falling apart. So I have to admit I kind of thought of that. That did cross my mind. This was a little bit of an Octavia Butler idea grab. Though he can do much more with his powers than the sharers can in Earthseed. But yeah, that crossed my mind.
Well, the last thing that happened on Sanctuary 4 that was a conversation between Michael and Book that I thought was really cool when he talks about he was from a beautiful planet like this and he gave it all up and he asked her what did you leave behind, and she said like 930 years, like basically her entire world is gone, her family, everything, Sarek and Amanda, Spock, and she did it all for the future. And and then it cuts to Book and he just says thank you, and I love that someone thanked her.
Yeah,
I like that too. I thought that was
like that he believes her.
Line.
He believes her too. I mean, he's decided that he's clearly at some point decided that everything this lady says is probably pretty true and that she hasn't lied to him yet. So she's, and so when she says she saved the galaxy, yeah, okay, I'm just going to assume she's actually telling the truth on this.
Yeah, and not only does he believe her and he thanks her, but then he helps her out and he takes her to the old broke down relay station, and we're low on time, so we won't be able to talk much about this, but we meet the character Mr. Sahil. I don't want to say his first name because I think I'm going to mess it up, but it's like Aditya. It's like an Indian name, but his last name is Sahil. Mr. Sahil. He has different colored alarm clock birds, like these holographic alarm clock birds for different.
Which I love.
I believe this will be the best weird cosplay of the next Star Trek convention. Is
white pajamas.
White pajamas and like a little bird with a clock on its side perched on the shoulder. I want to see it.
We see him get out of bed. In his bed is this programmable matter that just morphs away, and he gets out of bed every day. He brushes his teeth. He forms his office.
His
furniture.
office is his bedroom, right? That was my impression.
Okay. Yeah, so he deletes the bed and activates the desk, and he sets this little flag on the desk, and then begins searching for Starfleet ships or Federation ships. They use the term weirdly interchangeably in this episode, but that's what he does every day.
Which I kind of like that fuzziness on the terminology, that like Starfleet is the thing that represents the Federation, and that just seems to be how they use the term. If you're somebody who follows the belief structure of the Federation, then you are in Starfleet, or you are a Starfleet. I mean, he understands some distinction because he knows commissioned and non-commissioned and stuff like that. But
I don't know. He might not know what the hell he's talking about with it.
Well, maybe not all the ins and outs, but
stuff that like his dad's dad told his dad that he told him. So
and the fact that he wasn't commissioned kind of to me speaks of no, Dad, I'm not following your crazy religion. You're stupid. And then later on, he said, "Oh my God, my dad was right. I got to go back and continue with that tradition." But now my dad's dead, so no one's there to commission me. That's kind of the head story I wrote as to how come Dad didn't commission him. But
I like that he's just like, "Welcome to Starfleet" when Burnham walks in, and she explains, who she is. She's looking for her ship, and so they start scanning for it, and they establish here there are 2 Starfleet ships within his area. By the way, like he doesn't have like long range scanning capabilities, but he can still scan 600 light year radius, which is pretty huge by our 24th century Star Trek standards. Like that takes months for like a Voyager or the Enterprise to like fly across 600 light years. That's like most of a year.
Yeah. No, I thought it was both nicely limiting and nicely impressive.
Yeah.
I suspect we will see those ships at some point.
Yes, maybe one of them is an Enterprise with some number after the 1701. But yeah, they talk about, okay, so the Discovery might not have emerged from its wormhole journey yet. It can show up at like any time, so we have to be on the lookout for it, on the search for it. But he does ask her as a commissioned officer, will you hang up this Federation flag? And we get this ceremonious little thing, and then she says like, "Oh, I'm going to commission you because I need a communications chief." But I
I ended up really liking that moment.
Yeah.
Well, I like that she's like the big hero here, and it's not because like, "Oh, Michael, you're like your mom is the Red Angel," or like it's not like the whole universe is all about her for some kind of weird inorganic reason that's kind of contrived. It's like, no, like this guy is her hero because she is like the only representative of the Starfleet of old that he has access. Like this could have been like any Starfleet character that this could have been Ensign Boimler. This could have been Harry Kim. This could have been like anyone like walk through that door and hang up this flag, and this guy would be like, "Oh my God, like you're my hero right now," and for her to like lead him onto this mission to like try to find what they can of the Federation, of Starfleet, and rebuild it. That I guess was kind of the emotional climax of this.
Oh yeah, this whole sequence was my favorite part. I liked the whole episode, but this was just brilliant, breathtakingly good. I was crying by the end of it. It was just, I loved it.
I'm looking forward to seeing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I like the way he played it. I love I hope we get to see more of that guy. I'm sure we'll see at least a little bit more of him because they went to the trouble of making him.
He has an assignment. I think he's going to be a recurring, supporting character.
Yeah,
and I'm glad because it's
they wouldn't
fascinating to have
open a show on him if he was going to be like this insignificant. They wouldn't have wasted that opening setup stuff.
Yeah.
He kind of brings, and this was how the initial scene was very well filmed, kind of showing how he still has this very. Like the true believer he is, he like gets up, he like gets dressed in this very kind of crisp, dignified suit, that he has a kind of quiet resilience and dignity to him, even though he may be doing a fool's errand. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch him kind of grow and become a presumably somewhat key part of their future operation. So I like his brief screen time.
I like the line of dialogue at the end that they kind of close with when he says, "Our numbers are few, our spirit is undiminished."
Yeah. And I think this is what this show has that all the other post-apocalyptic sci-fi shows don't have. I think. Does any of them have something like this, where we have this quasi-religious order of the old guard that is actually good people? They're not corrupt. They haven't fallen. They're actually no, Starfleet would help you find your ship. We're going to help you find your ship. I'll do whatever I can, and he doesn't ask for anything. He doesn't demand money, unlike every other person Michael has met in this universe or in this area of space.
I don't think there's any other sort of post-apocalyptic types things usually tend to have brought everyone down. There's usually not an organization that has kind of kept its dignity or maybe some sense of optimism in spite of it. Not like this. So this is territory that Discovery gets to stake out.
Yeah, and I like the quasi-religious reverence that the guy has for things like the Federation ideas and the Federation ideology and standards of behavior and stuff. I really like the fact that she's practically this holy person coming to visit him, and he's just this guy who never isn't even ordained.
Father, you should pop up a stress-free K's comment, that last comment there.
So in the live chat, Stress-Free K says that books people seem very Starfleety too. It's they seem to have the Sanctuary 4 people. They seem to have their noble values intact.
Yeah.
They're the exceptions to the rule, given what is presented in this episode.
But what's good is that now they have a connection to Starfleet. Two good organizations know what's up.
Yeah, and I'm eager to see them build upon this and see where it goes. So we don't have a lot of episodes. We only have one episode to go on. But even though our numbers are few, my spirit is undiminished. going from episode 1 to episode 2.
If I could pull it, to indicate my more cautious approach, if I could pull a quote from the dumb Andorian and Orion guys, I would. But I don't have one. So imagine them saying something kind of about getting a sandwich.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I would think you'd want something from Book about not trusting believers, but
yeah, no, it's just because I like this.
Oh, another true believer, huh?
Yeah. Well, I guess do they not have? I guess we don't have any long-range communications network. We can't just he can't just call the other bits of Starfleet out there.
He can't communicate with anything out of his little 30-sector corner of the galaxy. Little 30 seconds.
So we have all these new advances, but apparently they really haven't gotten the subspace radio is still maxed out at about 600 light years instead of 22 like it is in the 24th century. But interesting. So.
Well, I did find some Gorn eggs. Those are our Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections in the episode that I'll run through real quick. If I miss anything, Dave or Brian, that you notice, wait till I'm done with this list and then point them out to me. And anyone who is watching or listening, if I miss anything that you caught, be sure to let me know, and I'll give you credit for it next week. But the first one we have, the character Cosmo, who the episode kind of opens with him in Book. He is a Betelgeuse or Betelgeusian, however you want to say it, which was a species that we saw in Star Trek.
Wow. I totally didn't get that. That's amazing.
Looks pretty different. It is an updated version of that character, but that is what they were going for, and that's what's confirmed in the Ready Room.
Nice.
But speaking of classic Star Trek aliens, Book mentions that the Gorn destroyed 2 light years worth of subspace by creating wormholes. Of course, the Gorn being introduced in Arena on the original series. Not sure why Michael Burnham reacted to that, because there's no way she knows who the Gorn are, because they they were a new species in Arena, but I guess she might have been like, oh, the Gorn? Like, what are you talking about? Who are they?
Or just the amount of destruction that would be a level of destruction she wouldn't be familiar with from her.
I'm going to say that the Gorn, that the Disco and some of its sort of secretive missions found out at least about him.
Okay. On Book's ship, he mentions Benamite and his quantum slipstream. Benamite was a material that was established on Voyager when they had the quantum slipstream in Hope and Fear, and then in the episode Timeless, they were using Benamite crystals. That was why that they had to do their quantum slipstream experiment, because these Benamite crystals they found were going to disintegrate. He also mentions the dilithium recrystallizer that Brian brought up earlier. That was invented by Poe in the short Trek Runaway.
And perhaps independently by Spock in Star Trek 4.
No, well, Spock saw it in
you're right.
Sweet Sorrow, so that's how he knew about it. And he also mentions tachyon solar saline as being slow as shit, but that was established in the Deep Space Nine episode Explorers when Ben and Jake Sisko recreate an old Bajoran solar sailor, and it is able to travel on tachyon eddies to actually move pretty quickly, but by book standards, it was slow. But yeah, they were solar sailing on tachyons. So book is referencing that. So they bring a bunch of that stuff up here in this episode of Discovery. And then two of the security personnel were familiar Trek races that we haven't seen in a long time. We had not only a Lurian, but also a Cardassian. And those are two species that we see a lot of on. I guess they both appeared on The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, but they're mainly known for their DS9 appearances. And so, me as like the big DS9 fanboy, I had a good time with that. Just whenever they can call back the best Star Trek show ever or make references to it, I'm happy. And Book mentions that the temporal wars, I believe that was clearly referring to the temporal Cold War, which maybe had heated up into a full-on war at some point, but that was all established in Enterprise. And primarily, I guess, would have happened in the 31st century, so shortly before the burn would have taken place.
Might even be related. Yeah,
it could be. And Michael Burnham mentions the Endangered Species Act. No one is around to enforce it anymore. Of course, the Endangered Species Act came up in the Discovery Season 1 episode, Magics to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, when Michael Burnham and Saru told Captain Lorca they had to follow the Endangered Species Act and rescue a Gormagander. It was a big space whale that was floating by the Discovery. And those were all of the Gorn eggs I found, but like I said, if you picked up on any that I did not, let me know, and you get all the credit. But we will go ahead and sign off now. We will be back next week, though, to discuss episode 2, which is surprisingly not called The Hope Is You Part 2. That is not the name of it.
Yeah, what does it mean? But I think we should give a quick special thanks to people for showing up for the first discussion of Discovery Season 3. Thanks, everybody out there.
Yeah, and be sure to stick around and go check out Starfleet Boy right now, because we're about to begin streaming Starfleet Boy After Dark, if he has not already started. And we'll be here next week to talk about Episode 2 of Season 3, Far From Home. Until then, as always, take care and live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fathery on Twitter at txtrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank